The girl left the parking lot of her college and headed home, but she never appeared there. Her relatives contacted the police, who immediately began searching. Soon, detectives were able to uncover a series of very disturbing facts, but they could not even imagine the horror that awaited them ahead. When the police finally learned the truth about the fate of this girl, it was so shocking that it led to changes in the laws, as nobody expected anything like it. Jodie Sunderholm was born on September 26, 1987, in the small American town of Arkansas City, Kansas. She grew up in a large, loving family, with an older sister and brother. During her school years, Jodie achieved impressive success. She led the dance team for several years and received 2 scholarships. In addition, she won first place in a physics competition and received the Student of the Year award. After school, the girl entered the local college to study pharmacy, where she also joined the dance team. Since the college was in the same town, Jodie continued living with her parents. In January 2007, when she was 19, their dance team was preparing for an important performance, so they had to train actively before this event. On the morning of January 5, Jodie arrived at the college for another training session. It ended around 10:45, and the girl was ready to return home. On the way to the parking lot, she and her friend agreed to meet in a few hours. Jodie said goodbye to her, got into her car, and left. But her friend Lori had an unpleasant surprise waiting. When the girl approached her car, she noticed that one of the tires was completely flat. She found this strange because she had come to the training just a few hours ago, and the tire was fine then. Lori thought she might have accidentally run over some sharp object and started thinking about how to get home. Soon, a passing man noticed her and helped her change the tire. He also said that the damage looked strange, as if someone had intentionally cut the tire with a knife. And if the girl had run over something so big and sharp, the tire would have gone flat almost instantly. These words seriously alarmed her, and she decided to call Jodie to tell her about the incident. But her friend did not pick up the phone. Lori tried to call several times, but she was constantly directed to voicemail. The girl thought that Jodie was simply busy. After training, she planned to take a shower and eat, so Lori decided to call her later. But when she called a few hours later, Jodie again did not answer. All this seemed very strange to her friend. First, the road from the college to her house took only a few minutes, and she should have already finished her affairs long ago. Second, they had agreed to meet, and Jodie usually did not disappear without warning. Eventually, Lori decided to go to her friend's house, but her concern only grew there. Jodie's car was missing, which meant only one thing: the girl had gone somewhere. Lori thought that she might have gone to the store owned by her parents, where her mother worked most of the day, and Jodie liked to spend time with her there. Lori went there, but only Jodie's mother was at the store. The woman said that her daughter hadn't stopped by, and then the friend shared that she had been unable to contact her for several hours. The mother replied that she too had called her daughter several times without a response. This was strange because Jodie always answered her mother's calls, no matter how busy she was. Moreover, she always told her what she was planning to do and where she was going. This day was different. Her mother decided to call her older daughter, who lived in another city, and ask her to call her sister. She was in her last month of pregnancy and was due to give birth any day. For this reason, the mother thought that Jodie would not miss a call from her. The sister called her, but this time the girl did not pick up the phone. All this made the mother even more worried and think that something bad might have happened to her daughter. And then Lori remembered about her slashed tire and something else. It all started on the evening of January 1, when she was returning home from a dance practice. As Lori was leaving the college parking lot, another car, a light-colored Cadillac, wanted to turn in front of her. However, it suddenly braked and let her go, which she found strange. Later, she noticed that this car was following her closely, and then Lori wondered. Maybe it let her go in order to follow her? She decided to check if the Cadillac was indeed following her, so she started turning onto neighboring streets and looking in the rearview mirror, but each time, this unknown driver was behind her, and Lori began to panic. Then she had an idea and headed straight to the nearest police station. She drove into the parking lot and started watching what the driver of the white Cadillac would do next. He indeed followed her all the way to the station. However, instead of entering the parking lot, he drove past and disappeared from view. Lori sat there for a while, thinking about whether she should report this to the police. In the end, she thought maybe she was just winding herself up, and he wasn't really following her. After all, she didn't see the car's license plate or the driver's face, so Lori decided to just go home. In the following days, she almost forgot about the incident, and so it continued until the morning of January 5. Lori arrived at the college for training, and as she started getting out of her car, she noticed the same Cadillac driving past her at a very slow speed. This time, she was able to see the driver's face, who was staring at her intently. He was a 23-year-old guy named Justin, whom she had known for many years. He was in the same class as her older brother, and even then, Lori was frankly afraid of him. Once, when her brother brought friends home, including Justin, he silently stared at Lori for a long time, which scared her a lot. She even had to ask her brother to kick Justin out because she was afraid to be in the same house with him. Lori also wondered if Justin could have something to do with her slashed tire, since he was in the college parking lot that same morning. Besides, Lori remembered that Jodie was also nearby and saw Justin slowly driving past her. Later, as they walked to the practice together, Lori told her about the incident. But by that point, she wasn't as worried. Despite Justin's strange behavior, she had known him for many years, so she quickly forgot about the incident. Lori told all this to Jodie's mother, and she became even more worried. She went home and made sure that her daughter had not returned there. The woman knew that after practices, Jodie always came home to take a shower, but this time, the girl's bathroom was completely dry. Moreover, she always brought home the mail and newspapers from the mailbox, leaving them in the hallway, but not on that day. Closer to 6 p.m., her parents' anxiety reached its peak, and they decided to contact the police. Even though Jodie was 19 years old and only a few hours had passed since her disappearance, the police immediately took up the case. The local sheriff knew the girl's family well, and from their story, he realized that something bad might have really happened to her. Her parents also mentioned that Jodie had a boyfriend named Colby, with whom she had been dating for 5 years. He lived in the same town and recently often traveled to Texas to visit his brother. The police hoped that perhaps Jodie went to him, and that would explain her absence, but when they called the boyfriend, he said he hadn't seen her since he left for Texas. As a result, the police decided to immediately organize a search throughout the town and its surroundings. They considered the possibility that Jodie could have been in an accident on one of the seldom-used roads around their small town. However, this scenario also raised doubts since the road from the college to Jodie's home went through the central part of the town. Concurrently with the searches, the police listened to Lori's story about Justin's strange behavior and decided to talk to him. They came to his house, and the guide agreed to answer their questions. According to his story, he spent most of the day at a lake with 3 friends, 25 kilometers away from the town. This place was popular among local residents who came there to relax in nature and fish. Justin said that they had been there almost all day and at some point, their car got stuck in the mud. The guys couldn't pull it out and started arguing, after which Justin decided to separate from them. He walked towards the road, called his father, and asked him to pick them up. The man, who was also at home during the police interview, confirmed his son's story and said that he indeed picked him up near that lake. Ultimately, the police left and continued their search in the area. Patrols drove around the outskirts of the town all night, but they were unable to find either Jodie or her car. Early in the morning, the police department began to involve volunteers in the search. News of the girl's disappearance quickly spread throughout the town, and a large number of concerned people responded to the call for help. That same day, the Kansas Bureau of Investigation contacted the police chief and offered their assistance. Although local police usually dislike interference from other agencies, this time they accepted the offer without hesitation, and agents headed to their town. Detectives spoke again with Jodie's boyfriend when he returned home and confirmed that he had no connection to the girl's disappearance. His bank card activity and witness statements confirmed that he was in another state. Active searches in the area were gaining momentum with each passing hour. More volunteers arrived at the police station, and search teams methodically scored all possible locations where Jodie's car might be. Meanwhile, investigators decided to take a closer look at Justin, as he was the only one who had raised any suspicions at that point. They established surveillance outside the guy's house and began to verify his alibi for the previous day. Detectives invited all 3 of Justin's friends to the station and asked them to confirm his story. Here, the police encountered an interesting turn of events. All of them stated that they hadn't seen Justin that day and hadn't gone to the lake with him. Realizing that the guy had lied about his alibi, detectives immediately began to consider him as the main suspect. However, this fact alone was not enough for an arrest, so investigators focused on finding additional leads and evidence. The police found out that Justin had recently broken up with a girl named Alexis and went to talk to her. To the detective's surprise, she not only agreed but also suggested they go to a large park near their town. There she told detectives that Justin was literally obsessed with this place. Many people came there to relax in nature, but the guy came there several times a week and sometimes said very strange things. Once when he went there with Alexis, Justin stood on the riverbank and said, "If I kill someone and dump the body here, it will never be found." The girl added that he said this not as some kind of joke. His words sounded as if he really planned to do something like that. Naturally, in the context of Jodie's disappearance, this story seemed extremely suspicious to the detectives. Alexis also added that Justin was a very cruel person. She recounted how, during intimate moments, he would constantly choke her. All this only strengthened the suspicions against Justin, and the police redirected search teams to this park. Concurrently, they obtained surveillance footage from the college and noticed the guy and his Cadillac on it. Notably, Justin came there several times a week, even though he did not study at this college. Based on these recordings, detectives speculated that he was stalking various girls from the dance team. On the morning when Jodie disappeared, he also appeared on camera. Unfortunately, it did not capture the area of the parking lot where Lori's car was parked, so investigators could not see if he actually slashed her tire. However, the footage showed Justin getting out of his car and walking precisely in the direction where her vehicle was parked, then returning back. All this happened just when Lori was at practice, further suggesting Justin's involvement in Jodie's disappearance. But the police still had no concrete evidence. However, they found a way to arrest the guy on another charge. It turned out that just a few days before, Justin had been arrested for trespassing, and the judge had released him on bail. Detectives contacted this judge, shared details of their investigation, and he revoked the bail, leading to Justin's arrest. This allowed the police to search his home in hope of finding new evidence and to speak again with his father. The man insisted that he had told the truth. He indeed picked up his son near that lake and drove him home. The father specified that Justin was covered in mud and immediately went to take a shower, then started cleaning his boots. The police confiscated them and took photos of the soles, hoping this would help in their search. They also seized Justin's phone and car, but this did not provide any new leads. The next morning, detectives received geolocation data from Jodie's mobile operator, and here they encountered a potentially important discovery. On the day of her disappearance, the girl's phone headed towards the very park Justin frequented. Based on this, the police focused even more efforts on examining this area. On that same day, one of the search teams noticed two sets of footprints on the ground leading into the woods. One set was made by large boots, likely men's, and the other by small-sized flip-flops, resembling women's. Notably, Jodie was wearing flip-flops on the day of her disappearance. A few dozen meters later, the women's footprints suddenly disappeared, leaving only the men's. This led the investigators to a grim conclusion. They theorized that someone might have led the girl into the forest under threats or by force. But at some point, she stopped complying and tried to resist. Then the man might have attacked her, after which he carried her unconscious body further. Despite this, the tracks did not lead them to any new evidence, and with the onset of darkness, the search had to be ended. However, several volunteers from the search teams decided to visit the lake where Justin had allegedly been with his friends that day. The place was on their way, and they stopped there hoping to find any leads. The volunteers drove into the parking lot in front of the lake and almost immediately noticed something unusual. On the sidewalk, which ran between the parking lot and the public toilets, there were distinct tire marks, as if someone had failed to brake in time and drove onto it. The volunteers began looking around and quickly noticed boot tracks in the mud near the toilets. Then one of them decided to check the cubicles and looked inside the toilets. Essentially, they were just pits in the ground, and the man started shining a flashlight into them. In the very first toilet, he saw something resembling letters and other papers. In another, he noticed a bright women's jacket and something resembling a wallet, as well as a woman's flip-flop. The man immediately contacted the police, and they retrieved all these items. They quickly established that all of it belonged to Jodie. The wallet contained documents in her name. Besides, they found several other items belonging to the girl in the toilets, including her dance shoes, shorts, and pants, as well as a car mat and a seat cushion. Although they still had not found Jodie herself, the discovery of her belongings was a very bad sign. The detectives understood that she was likely no longer alive and now had to focus on searching for her body. For Jodie's relatives, the news of the discovery of her belongings was a heavy blow. All this time, they had held on to hope that she would be found alive, but now that hope had nearly vanished. Her older sister gave birth to a child the very next day after Jodie's disappearance, and learned of these developments in the hospital with the newborn in her arms. Later, she shared that at that moment, her mind simply could not comprehend that the most terrible and happiest events were happening to her simultaneously. The next day, the police redirected search teams to the lake and its surroundings. Given that Jodie's belongings were found in this area, detectives theorized that her body might also be nearby. Moreover, they noticed tire tracks on the shore that led directly into the water. The police speculated that the girl's car might have been pushed there and called in divers. They spent the entire day diving to the lake's bottom, attempting to find the car, but to no avail. The lake was quite large, and it would take a significant amount of time for the divers to even cover a small part of it. Consequently, the investigators sought help from a nonprofit organization in Texas specializing in underwater searches. This organization, founded by a man whose own daughter had been kidnapped and killed, had helped find evidence in hundreds of cases over the years. Initially, it was a small group of people assisting the police in searching for missing individuals, but over time, it grew into a true professional organization. They possessed high-tech equipment not commonly found in police departments, including boats equipped with radars, helicopters, and drones with various sensors. They joined the search the following morning and began scanning the lake with a radar from a boat. Almost immediately, the equipment detected something large at the bottom, resembling the size of a car, and divers were sent to investigate. Diving into the water, they confirmed the presence of a vehicle. It was pulled ashore, and the police immediately recognized it as Jodie's car. However, the girl herself was not inside. The investigators had thought her body would be inside, but it was empty. Detectives realized that searching for any clues inside the car would be nearly futile. All the windows were open, causing the interior to be completely filled with water. The several days the car spent submerged were likely enough to wash away any potential DNA evidence and other leads. Nevertheless, experts still examined every inch of the interior. To their own surprise, this yielded results. They managed to find a single hair, which was immediately sent to the laboratory. That same day, while detectives awaited the DNA analysis results, search teams continued to comb through the park near the town. One of the search group members noticed a large pile of branches deep in the forest that looked unnatural and approached it. As the man got closer, he saw a human hand protruding from the branches and immediately informed the police. The detectives knew they had found Jodie and sent her body for examination. The autopsy revealed that the girl had received a severe blow to the head, and the cause of death was strangulation. Experts indicated that based on the injuries present, the perpetrator might have strangled her repeatedly, pausing periodically. Besides, her entire body was covered with bruises from numerous blows. Experts also determined that the victim had been sexually assaulted, and they found several samples of foreign DNA on her body. However, these samples were too small for a comprehensive analysis. But when they took samples from under Jodie's nails, they found skin particles. DNA samples extracted from them matched Justin's sample. The hair found in the victim's car also belonged to him, and with this evidence, the police could finally charge Justin with murder. He refused to admit his guilt, but with such a set of direct and circumstantial evidence, detectives could construct the most likely scenario of what happened. Moreover, after finding the body, they gathered even more clues and testimonies. They needed to understand under what circumstances Justin managed to abduct Jodie. That morning, she left the college parking lot, and detectives were sure that she made it home. Letters found in the toilet helped confirm this. They were delivered to Jodie's mailbox that same morning, but after she left for practice. On one of them, experts found the girl's fingerprint, meaning she retrieved them from the mailbox after returning from college. Justin must have abducted her around this time before she entered her home. Soon, the police found confirmation of this theory. On a vacant lot directly opposite her house, they found men's boot prints, the sole pattern of which matched Justin's boots exactly. From this, investigators deduce that he waited for her there, and when Jodie collected the mail, he could have approached her, struck her on the head with something heavy, and placed her in her car. Alternatively, he might have forced her into the vehicle with threats. After that, he would have driven her to the park, and detectives found confirmation again. One of Jodie's friends reported that she drove past her car that day. The friend saw a man at the wheel and thought it was Colby, Jodie's boyfriend. However, she noted that the person behind the wheel seemed much larger than Jodie's boyfriend. As she passed, the friend waved at her, but Jodie did not respond. Afterward, the friend tried calling her, but Jodie did not pick up the phone. She also added that Jodie's car was heading towards that very park. The police managed to find several more witnesses who saw Justin and Jodie in her car near the park. According to investigators, Justin brought her to a secluded part of the park and, under threats, forced her to walk with him into the forest, as evidenced by their tracks on the ground. But at some point, Jodie stopped following him, and he attacked her and carried her in his arms further into the forest. There he abused her and then killed her and covered her body with a large number of branches. According to medics, the process of killing and abusing the victim lasted at least several hours. After hiding the body, Justin must have gotten into her car and driven to a lake where he lowered the car into the water. He may have planned to reach home on foot, but the distance was quite impressive. So after some time, the guy decided to call his father and ask him to pick him up. The detectives had no doubt that this was roughly what had happened, and they had enough evidence to take the case to court. But they soon learned a lot more information about Justin himself that shocked them and only helped them better understand who the man really was. First, two women contacted the police at once: Justin's ex-girlfriend and an employee of the cafe where he worked. Both of them stated that they feared for their safety and shared their stories. His ex-girlfriend said that prior to his arrest, Justin sent her several threatening messages, after which she saw him in front of the windows of her home. Another woman recounted how Justin approached her early in the morning when she was opening a coffee shop before her shift started. He said his car broke down and asked for a ride. Even though he hadn't been working there long, the woman was seriously wary of him because he was acting pretty strange. So she said she had a lot of work to do and no time. Justin drove off, and soon she saw him driving past the cafe at a low speed, watching her. It turned out that there was nothing wrong with his car, and he drove by the establishment several more times that day. The woman was so frightened that she decided to call the police and ask them to escort her home. And the next morning, when she went to open the cafe, the lock was riddled with splinters, and she had no doubt that Justin had done it. But all of this was just the tip of the iceberg that the detectives were about to learn about. Already after the arrest, other women began contacting them to share their stories. One said that in 2000, when she was 14 and Justin was 17, he tried to abuse her by holding a pillow to her face. Another woman said that in 2001, she worked with Justin at KFC. After her shift, they got to talking in the parking lot. The guy was sitting in his car, and she was standing next to the driver's door. At one point, Justin suddenly grabbed her and dragged her into the cabin through the window and forced her to sit with him for hours. Another time, he abused the girl, but she apparently didn't report it to the police. That same year, he chased a girl who left a movie theater and walked home. Justin drove after her at a low speed, more than 10 kilometers, until she went into her house. The girl immediately told about it to her mom, who managed to write down the license plates of the car, after which she went to the police. However, this time, no investigation was conducted. Another girl said that in 2004, she found a note from Justin inside her car, which scared her a lot. In 2006, he told an acquaintance who was looking for a car to buy that he had a good option and offered to go see it. She had an 11-year-old girl with her at the time, and they both got into Justin's car, but he drove them into the woods. And as soon as he stopped, they both jumped out of there and ran for several kilometers until they came across a farmhouse. The girl called the police from there, but this time too, Justin was not charged with any crime. In the same year, Justin took another girl to the woods and forced her to undress, threatening her with a knife. Apart from this, there were other women who shared similar stories. Some of them went to the police, but each time Justin avoided responsibility. But the most shocking story was shared with detectives by a guy who was friends with Justin as a child. He was about 12 years old at the time, and Justin told his friend that he liked to sneak to a house nearby and peek at two girls swimming in the pool. In addition to this, he would also peek at them through their bedroom window. These girls were Jodie, who was about 9 at the time, and her older sister. The same friend told police that a few years later, when the older sister was 17, Justin would regularly pull into the parking lot in front of the movie theater where she worked the evening shift and watch her from the car for hours. All of this indicated that Justin had had unhealthy tendencies since childhood, and throughout the years he had consistently committed crimes of varying severity, but had never been held seriously accountable for them. The start of Justin's trial was postponed several times, and it started only in February 2009. Given the array of evidence and the number of witnesses who testified on the side of the prosecution, the man had little chance to escape punishment. His attorneys, on the other hand, were unable to present a single solid argument in favor of their client's innocence. In the end, the trial was completed in just a week, and the jury unanimously found Justin guilty. The man was sentenced to death, and he failed to appeal the decision. However, in 2018, Justin's lawyers were able to get a stay of execution, insisting that the man was showing signs of mental retardation. As a result, Justin is still in prison to this day, and whether his sentence will be executed is still unknown. As for Jodie's relatives, they were justifiably outraged by the fact that Justin had been committing various crimes against women for years, but the police ignored all such appeals, allowing this criminal to remain on the loose. As a result, they set out to remedy the inaction of law enforcement and actively promoted a law that would allow the police to take more proactive measures in stalking cases. This law was passed by the state in 2009, a year after the murder, and was called In Memory of Jodie.